Hello my friends, it might be the first time we've met. If that's the case, my name is Sam. Maybe you've practiced with me quite regularly, and if that's the case, my name is still Sam. So, good to see you back here. This practice today is going to work on the lateral sides of the body, but from a perspective of strengthening them. If you practiced the previous video, that was lateral line length. Today's practice is going to work on lateral line strength. So we are going to work to strengthen the abductor muscles. That's the glutes trio, the glute maximus, glute medius, glute minimus, or your butt cheeks. Mainly focusing on the glute med today, as well as the TFL, the tensor fascia latae. So these muscles on the outside of the hips that are responsible for taking your legs away from your midline. That's what we'll be working with. At least one block will come in handy if you have one. Twos are always preferable. But other than that, jump on your mat, get comfortable, and we'll get right into it. So in today's practice, we are going to work with a lot of isometric contraction. So when a muscle is flexed isometrically, it means it's flexing, it's contracting, but it's not moving. An example would be the top of a bicep curl, where the muscle is contracting, but it's no longer moving. The concentric phase would be the shortening phase of the muscle. The eccentric phase would be the lengthening stage of that contraction. And the isometric is when you are stationary. So lots of work with isometric contractions today. We're going to first start in a toe sit, so sitting back on your heels with your toes tucked under. And this is going to be our first opportunity to play with an isometric contraction. So once you find that toe sit, see if you can here just energetically imagine you are pulling the feet away from one another, so to either side of the room, almost like you're trying to spread the center of your mat apart. And from there, very gently, we'll take our palms and press inward on the thighs. So there is a co-contraction happening. Feet and knees are trying to move outward while your hands are pulling them or pressing them back in towards center. And then if you can from here, we'll close the eyes. Noticing already that this is perhaps far more active than how we would normally start our class. And this may set the tone for things to come. Trying to keep your breath steady even as you start to feel the outside of the hips and the front of the shins start to fire up. Breathe in together. Always a little more gentle as you exhale. And then very gently, just untucking the toes for a moment, sitting the hips back to heels, using your fingertips for support, just lean back, lift your right knee for just a moment, just to try and relieve some of that fire that was just building in the front of that shin. Right knee drops down, we'll lift the left. So always working with this pose, counter pose, or action, counter action throughout the practice. So we're not just doing one thing consistently, we are trying to do the opposite shortly after, just so we get a well-rounded experience. We'll come onto hands and knees. When you get there, we'll keep the toes tucked under. We're going to work again with that same isometric contraction. So with the toes tucked, imagine your knees and your feet were moving away from one another. And we'll come to a cow pose here. So tailbone will lift, chest will pull forwards, gaze will lift. Take an inhale. And as you exhale, let the feet and knees draw in towards each other as you push to round. Inhale, knees and feet pull apart as you open and lift the chest. Exhale, the knees and feet draw together. And I'm speaking energetically, so they may not move at all. They may move a couple of inches, that's okay. One more time like that. Knees and feet really drawing apart as you lift and open. Exhale to draw back in. Very good. Coming back towards that cow pose, letting that belly drop, really rising the tailbone. Feet and knees energetically pull apart. We'll press into the hands and then guide the hips up and back. You'll come to your first downward facing dog. We'll try to keep the knees bending a fraction more, the heels rising a fraction higher. And again, imagining that the feet, or the heels more specifically, were pulling away from one another, tractioning through the hands to really feel the tailbone lift higher here. And if we can, right leg will stay. We'll reach the left leg up. As it lifts, we'll keep it straight. Just roll the hip open. So as the hip rolls open, that's your abductor muscles on the right hip, the outer right hip, that are contracting to allow that hip to open. Both arms are nice and straight. Maybe you can lift that left pinky toe a little higher. Take an inhale. As we exhale, we're going to square off the hip. So the left hip will drop. Once they come to square, we're going to let the left hip drop lower than the right. So your left thigh is now internally rotating slightly. Maybe you gaze under your right armpit. You might feel a deeper stretch through the outer right hip. Then inhale, we'll open the hip back up. Exhale, we'll close it off. One more time, inhale, we open. Exhale, let it close. Left hip drops lower than the right. We look under the armpit. And we soften left foot down. Next in-breath, let the right leg rise just straight up and back behind you. To exhale, pull knee to chest, roll forwards, try to land that right foot gently. We'll set up for warrior two, so letting your back heel drop down. As you come up, imagine your feet were drawing towards each other. You'll feel an element of lift. Once you find and feel that lift, let your right hand press gently inside your right thigh. And your hand is pushing your thigh back as you pull your right thigh back in. Again, that strong co-contraction, that isometric contraction there. Back leg working to straighten out a little more. You may even be able to shuffle that left leg backwards. Then from here, everything stays the same. We'll just swap the hand. It'll move to the outside of the thigh. And the thigh will push out as your hand draws back in. And again, this is those abductor muscles starting to fire up. I don't know about you, but I can already feel my heart rate starting to rise and the breath to go just a little bit. Keep everything the same. Just open the arms. Find your warrior. Again, you're not going to be as deep as you normally would because you've got all those strong co-contractions going on. The feet are pulling towards each other. The inner and outer thighs are both working. From here, let front leg straighten. Flex the quad as you do. Right arm will rise up. Breathe in. As we exhale, circle both hands inside your right foot. Lift your back heel off the mat. And then we'll work to step the left foot up wider than the left hand. Sit the hips down, coming towards Malasana. Another co-contraction, lucky us. As you press the palms together, the elbows are drawing out as your thighs press your elbows back in. Letting the chest lift high, leaning back towards heels, breathing. And then fingertips find the mat. We will fold. So parallel your feet, bend the knees a little, let yourself fold over the front of your thighs. As always, if we've practiced together, you know sometimes we like to take the hands to the back of the head to really allow the neck to lengthen. Release the hands, we'll start to roll up to stand. So trying not to overthink it, just rolling through the spine. When you arrive at standing, we'll circle the arms wide and reach them tall, look up. And the exhale, pull us straight back down, bending knees as you fold over the thigh. Halfway lift is the in-breath, so length through the spine. And keeping the length, right foot will stay. Step the left leg back really long to find a lunge. As you find the lunge, see if you can press your palms flat, fall on the outside edge of the right foot. So really allowing that right knee to fall out to the right-hand side. And energetically, feet are drawing towards each other on a 45-degree angle. So not only is this right foot pulling back, it's also drawing to the left. And with that left foot, it's pulling forwards and also to the right And as you drive the outside edge of that right foot down into the earth, we see if we can walk our arms out in front of us. So lots of action in the legs today. Take a breath. And hands walk back towards us. We'll do our best. We're going to see if we can pick up this right foot without the right knee touching the right arm. So use your exhale to activate the core body muscles. Let that leg hover. See if right pinky toe can lift up towards the ceiling, engaging those abductors. Take a breath. And we'll step back towards a plank. Wow. Goodness gracious me. Strong in the plank. We're going to take a push-up. So lean forwards. Chest finds the floor in the push-up. Then we press straight back up. Then as we lower all the way down, nice gentle cobra pose. Feet press down, shoulder blades roll back as you lift the chest. Feel the hands pulling back to draw the chest forwards. Breathe in. Exhale. We let the head lower down. We tuck the toes. We find another push-up. So we press straight up and back to downward facing dog. Similar to our last downward facing dog, knees will bend a little more, heels will rise a little higher, and you'll pull the feet apart, feeling the outer hips start to activate. And this time, right leg will start to lift. As it does, we'll keep it straight. Just roll the hip open. Think right pinky toe to ceiling. Feel left abductor muscles working to open that left hip. Take a breath. Exhale, we square off the hips first. Then we try and drop the right hip lower than the left, and we look under the left armpit, working to lengthen through the outer left hip. 2 more times. Inhale, we open. Exhale, we close the hip. One last time. Inhale. Close it off. Exhale. Nice one. And softening the right foot down, lifting left leg up. Breathe in. Exhale, pull knee through chest. Work to step that foot gently forwards. As back heel drops down, we'll find that warrior 2 shape. Strong legs, they draw towards each other. Remember, it's not going to be your deepest warrior 1. That's not our intention here today. Left hand works inside the left thigh. You press the hand against the thigh against the hand. At the same time, you're drawing those feet towards each other. This is just to get the inner thighs active and working. Then we swap left hand to the outside of the thigh, hand and thigh press together. Now, I actually taught this sequence in a public class just recently, and I said to the students, this is one of these things, these co-contractions, where it can easily look like you're doing nothing. Like I could just have my hand there doing absolutely nothing. Or I could really press the two together. I could feel the whole body shape, and I could really, really work hard. So this is one of these points in the practice where even if you are led by a teacher, the work comes from inside, right? It's easy to make it look like you're doing something without actually doing anything. I'm sure we can all agree that maybe back in the day when you were at school, you used to pretend to do your work when the teacher would look, but you were absolutely doing nothing. Or maybe that was just me. Find your warrior pose. Take an inhale. And then front leg will straighten. Flex the quad as you do so. Left arm rises. Breathe in. Exhale, both hands inside your left leg. Pick up the back heel. We'll step up. Coming to Malasana again. Sitting nice and deep. Maybe feet are a fraction closer this time. Still working elbows to inner thighs to elbows. Bum down, head up. Slow breathing. And we find our fold again. Hands down, hips lift. We fold over the thighs. Halfway lift, breathe in. Exhale, we bow. And circle arms wide, reach them tall. Breathe in. exhale straight back down. Inhale, halfway lengthen. Right leg steps back long this time as you come to that lunge. Outside edge of the left foot presses down. Left knee falls out towards left hand side. And then this is where we find a lot of those strong co-contractions. Feet are drawing towards each other on that 45-degree angle. Outside edge of the left foot is pressing down. We see if we can reach the arms out a little further in front. Maybe drop the head. Again, this is inner work. It's coming from you, so you are the one who is control of how hard you work today. Walk the hands back towards you without the left knee touching the left arm. Try and let the foot hover, lift it, and then turn that left pinky toe up towards the ceiling. Take an inhale. Exhale, we'll take it back. My gosh. Let's find the push-up again. So lean forwards, bend the elbows, chest to floor. Press straight back up. And then lower all the way down. And come through cobra pose. Roll the shoulder blades back. Lift the chest. Breathe in. Exhale. Let the head drop for just a moment. In a moment here, we're going to roll onto our right side. So as we roll onto the right side, you're going to feel the outside edge of the right foot resting into the floor. Just have your left leg on top for a moment. Notice I've got the right elbow down here. You could even use your left fingertips to press into the floor. What we're going to do is work to lift the left leg up. As we do, we're going to try and find a little bit of internal rotation. So if you look at your toes for a moment, the big toes are going to touch, the heels are going to spin apart, almost like there was a slice of pizza between the feet. And you keep that internal rotation of your left thigh. You just try and lift the left leg. So the leg is straight, the heel is pressing back, but the big toe is lower than the heel. We'll lift it up as high as it will go right now, and then we'll lift it higher than that. We'll be here for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Golly, gosh, really working those abductor muscles there. We're going to roll off onto the left hip. So you're coming straight over to the other side now. Right foot will stack on top of the left. You can rest your left elbow onto the floor, then just use your right fingertips if that is comfortable. Again, big toes are going to touch, heels will spin apart, then we'll do our best to lift the right leg. So this is working a little more of that TFL muscle at the front there. If we were to spin the toes up, you could lift the leg a lot higher, but we are trying to really work those abductor muscles to lift that leg press through the heel. Keep the foot flexing. Here for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Roll back through center for a moment. Do absolutely nothing. From here, let hands slide down by the ribs. You can press into the knees this time, push up via hands and knees. Send the hips back to heels. Find child's pose for a moment, but if you can, just keep your head and chest lifted. You could use the fingertips or the palms to press your hips back. So a little bit of traction through the hands to guide the hips back a little more. We'll take it to downward facing dog. Keep a block handy. You'll need it in a moment. As we find our downward facing, inhale, right leg will rise straight up and back. Exhale, we'll step the foot between the hands. Drop your back heel down, take your block, rest it on the outside of your right foot. So we're preparing for Parsvakonasana, or side angle pose. We're going to use the block on the outside of the foot for today. That way we can press the hand into the block, the arm into the leg, and we can find, again, that isometric or that co-contraction as the arm presses against the leg. Left arm reaches straight up. If there's space, left arm can reach forwards, but keep driving that arm against the leg. If the arm is extended forwards, maybe look under your left armpit. Be here together for 3 breaths. Remember, do the work. Try not to just look like you're doing the work. Inhale. One more. Then left hand to the mat. We're going to walk our hands to the left foot, find Skandasana. So turn the toes out a little, keep your left foot planted, but lift your right toes off the mat. As you lower down, you want to feel your right toes flexing towards you, your right quadriceps, thigh muscles working in your right thigh. Get some length here. You can use your hands for support. Feel the hips getting lower to the floor. Nice work. In a moment, we're going to prepare for a half moon pose. So we've got the block there at the front. We're going to come via a lunge first. Use your hands for support. Set the right foot firm and flat, and lift your back heel off the mat. So right toes are pointing forwards. Reach the block out in front of your right foot on the higher side. Now we're going to try and really avoid jumping into this pose. We're going to use the strength we've created in the right leg. Just lean forward, and as we lift the back leg, we roll open the hip. So we've done this all practice so far. You feel the abductor muscles on the outer right hip shorten or contract to help roll the hip open. Left hip stacks on top of the right, left foot is flexing, and just like we did when we were on our side, can you feel the heel lifting higher than the big toe? So slight internal rotation of the thigh just for today. Getting lift out of that bottom right side by pressing palm into your block, maybe even lifting onto fingertips to find a fraction more lift. Resisting the urge to turn your right toes, instead keeping them forward. Be here for 5, 4, 3, 2, on 1. Take your left hand down to the block as well. Square off through the hips. And like we did when we were in that one-legged downward facing dog, let your left hip drop lower than the right. Find that internal rotation of your left thigh to lengthen through the outer right hip. Nice work. Now from here, hips are square. Bring left knee in towards the chest. And I know you want to get down or off that right leg. So we're going to extend the left leg out in front of us, bend the right knee, and sit all the way down. That could have been a crash. It may not have been. It could have been graceful. Doesn't really matter. Blocks on the outside of your left thigh here. We're going to cross the outside edge of the right foot onto the block, which is outside your left thigh. Legs are in a figure 4 shape. Lift the hips, slide them back a fraction. And we've elevated this right foot just a little so the right knee can drop down a little lower. That way, when we work our way into a fold, we might find a little more of an intense stretch, you could call it, in those abductor muscles. Now you might not feel too much in this pose if your hips are quite open. Maybe you don't feel much at all, but if your hips are quite tight, you're going to feel a lot. So I'm going to give you an option here in a moment, and this is just if you wanted to take it a little bit further. You could let your right hand catch the outside of the left foot. And then if that works, take your left fingertips, press them off the left-hand side, and there's an inhale to lift the chest, and exhale to twist you to the left. Now here's the fun part. Imagine you're trying to take your right ear to rest on the sole of your right foot, almost like you're making a phone call on your foot phone. Both feet are flexing. If you've got hold of the foot, you're still pulling, and you're still using those left fingertips to find more of that twist. Last breath. And gently begin to rise. Now that right leg might need a bit of support to move, so you draw the knee back in towards center. Catch the back of the hamstring. And just let the foot levitate for a moment, straighten and bend the right knee a few times. Wow. Straighten the leg, roll out through the ankle, one direction and then the next. Nice. Now we'll come back towards downward facing dog. So just roll over onto hands and knees. Keep your block handy at the top of the mat. We will use it soon. Take an inhale. Let it out. And then left leg will rise straight up as you breathe in.
The exhale will step the foot forwards. Block is outside your left foot, preparing for side angle pose, so press the arm against the leg. If you can, wrapping the bicep forwards so that the inner left arm and the outer left thigh are pressing against each other. Either using your right arm just to reach straight up towards the ceiling, or if you feel there is more space, you could circle that right arm towards the front of your mat. Remember, do the work rather than just look like you're doing the work. Sit deeper in the hips, feel the arm and the leg press against each other a little more, and use that strength to roll under the right armpit just a fraction more. 2 breaths. Last inhale. Nice work. Right hand finds the mat. We walk over to the right foot, coming to Skandasana. So right knee bends deeply, left toes lift off the mat. And use your hands for support. Let the hips get low, but really lift those left toes off the mat. So flex them towards you. Flex the thigh muscles on the left-hand side. Feel the inner left thigh starting to lengthen. And then setting up for our half moon pose. Making your way via a lunge, top of mat. Left foot is firm and planted. Block on the higher side in front of the left foot. Resist the urge to jump. Notice I've got my right fingertips here too. This will also resist the urge to jump. We just lean forwards, back leg rises. Once we get there, we use the strength of the left leg to roll the left hip open and feel the right hip stack on top. So you're pressing the pelvis towards the right hand side of your mat, but you're feeling your heel lift a little higher than your pinky toe. Just for today, strengthen through those abductor muscles a little more. Right arm reaches up to ceiling, and we just breathe. Again, maybe the fingertips are there for you to lift a little higher. One of the key points is keeping left foot staying straight. That will increase the amount of hip opening you're experiencing at that left hip joint. Last breath. And we close the hips, both hands find the block. So we come through a square hip action first, and we try and drop the right hip a little lower than the left to feel that inner left, outer left hip lengthen, I should say. My apologies. Then pulling right knee towards the chest. I know your left leg's on fire. We bend into the left knee, deliver the right leg out in front of us. Wowza. Thank goodness that is over. Right leg will stay straight. Block is outside the right knee, and we'll work to cross the outside edge of the left foot onto the block. I hope when we do some of this stuff that it is challenging for you as well, because it's not all easy, I tell you. So keeping both of your feet flexed, we are working to find that fold, letting the left knee drop. It's a little lower than the right. See what that feels like. Remember, if you don't feel enough, if you'd like to feel more, left hand works to outside edge of right foot. Right fingertips press down off the right hand side. There's an inhale to lift the chest. And exhale to turn your torso to the right hand side, and maybe lower your left ear down towards the sole of your left foot. Both sides definitely not even. I can only speak from experience, but I'm telling you, this left side is far more tight than the right was. But that's okay. We're still here. Both feet flexing, pulling with the left hand, pushing with the right hand. Last breath in. And come back through center. Use support to bring that left knee back towards center. Grab hold of the hamstring. Let the foot hover. Bend and straighten the knee a few times. And then once the leg straightens, roll out through the ankle. Nice work. We'll set both feet down. Just give them a chance to shake out here. They have done quite a lot for us. Golly gosh. And then bring the soles of the feet together. Let the knees fall out wide. Using your hands behind your hips here, we're going to see how close we can get our bottom to our heels. So press the ball of the big toe together, or the balls of the big toes together. Use your fingertips, lift your bottom, and just bring your hips a little closer. See what that feels like. A little more of an active stretch, still pressing balls of feet together. Make the knees fall away from one another. If you can, bring the hips a little closer. Maybe the hips hover, and you just rely on the fingers there. You can set the hips down if they've lifted. Pardon me. Interlace your fingers around the toes. Maybe find a fold there. And as we come up through a seat, your knees draw towards each other, lower down on to the back. So nice and gentle here to finish off. Let the arms fall out wide, let your feet shuffle wide, knees knock together. If you have or did lose the breath throughout the practice, always remember the movements are supplementary to the breathing. You allow your breath to slow down. You bring a deeper level awareness to your breathing. This helps to make all other decisions and actions a little bit easier. And sometimes a little bit easier is all we need in our lives. Let both knees fall to the left. If there's space, left foot rests on the outside of the right thigh. It might take a little bit of adjusting to get there, that's okay. Letting your belly expand here if you can. Really allowing your breaths to become really emptying and clearing as you exhale. Still through the nose, both in and out, but with more of an emphasis on letting everything go, everything we may be holding on to, everything we no longer need. Releasing the left foot. Keep the feet wide, bring hips back through center first, and then shuffle those knees off towards the right-hand side. Perhaps this time right foot rests outside the left thigh. Weight of the right foot, lengthening outer left hip a little more. Release the right leg. I'm going to bring the hips back through center. Work towards a happy baby, but just going to mix it up ever so slightly. So reach your arms up to the ceiling and lift your head off the ceiling. And then bring your knees towards your armpits. See if you can catch just the front of your ankles. Now I want you to imagine you were pulling like you were trying to take your knees towards the floor, but at the same time you're pushing your heels to the ceiling. And through that action, you might feel the low back ground onto the earth a little more. And if you don't, instead of imagining heels to ceiling, imagine heels to the front of your mat as you pull the knees towards the back of the mat. And drop the head down. If this experience feels okay to you and you know that it's available for you to straighten the legs, you could let that happen. Still trying to keep as much length of the spine on the mat if we can. Take one last breath. And you let the exhale release you. So as you come down, we prepare to find Shavasana, always taking as much care and intention coming to Shavasana as you would any other pose. As you find your Shavasana, really rolling shoulder blades onto the back, letting knuckles face the earth, fingers rolling up to ceiling. And finding a clearing exhale on your next out breath. Thank yourself for making time to practice. Be proud of your efforts. Be proud of your courage.
Thank yourself for exploring. From me to you with thanks. Peace.